What is up, tabletop gamers? My name is LeunameGames, and welcome back to LeunameGames. Tonight, I am sharing how to play the 2 to 4 player cooperative game Pandemic by Matt Leacock and published by LeunameGames. Let's see what's in the box. This is a cooperative game in which the players are members of a disease-fighting team headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and your mission is to travel around the world because four her diseases have broken out across the land, and it's your job to cure all these diseases before they wipe out humanity. To set up the game, each player will be given one of these role cards as well as their matching colored pawn. Each of these role cards have their special ability that will help players throughout the game. The dispatcher can move any player's pawn as if it was their own, or can fly a pawn from a space to any space with another pawn. The scientist needs just 4 cards of the same color to cure disease instead of 5. The quarantine specialist stops any disease being placed on the board or outbreaking from the city she's in or any city that's next to her. Event cards like this one are normally a one-time use and they are immediately discarded, but the contingency planner can take any one card that is discarded and put it in his hand to be used a second time. But once he uses it a second time, it must be removed from the game. The operations expert can build a research station in the city he's in without having to discard the matching card. The medic can remove all of the cubes in a city when going to treat a disease instead of just one. And after a disease has been cured, any city that they are standing in or walks through immediately removes all the disease cubes. The researcher can give any one of her city cards when she takes the share knowledge action, which I will explain later. Once each player has chosen their role, make sure you take their matching pawns and place them in Atlanta, Georgia. Why do the players start in Atlanta as long as with a research station? Because Atlanta is the home of the Center of Disease Control. Then give each player a number of city cards depending on how many players are playing. In the case of a 2-player game, as I have here, you give them 4 cards. There you go. In a 3-player game, give everyone 3 cards. And for a 4-player game, you can probably guess. Next, you need to set the difficulty. There are these epidemic cards, which I'll explain what they do in a minute. But to set up, you need to take a certain amount of these and shuffle them into the deck. If you want to play like an easy difficulty, you can do 4 cards. If you want to do a normal, you put 5. And if you want the heroic difficulty, you put in all 6. Any ones you don't use go back in the box. Then prepare the infected. First, make sure this marker with this biohazard symbol is placed on this first 2. Then draw 3 cards off the top of the deck and put 3 disease cubes in those matching cities. Then draw 3 more cards and add 2 to those cities. Lastly, draw the next 3 and you know where I'm going with this. Place this cross symbol on the 0 spot where the outbreak meter. Place these 4 cure bottle tokens under the matching icons for their matching diseases. Make sure the research stations and extra disease cubes are within everyone's reach. And lastly, make sure each player has a reference card that lets them know what they can do. And now you're ready to go. Starting with the player who was most recently sick, each player will get 4 actions. What can you do on your turn, you may wonder? Well, you can do a variety of things. For one action, you could move from one city to another city. You could discard a city card to fly to that city. You can discard a city card that matches the city you're in to fly to any city. You can fly from one place that has a research station to another place that has a research station. You can discard a city card that matches the city you're in to build a research station there. For one action, you could treat a disease cube, unless you're the medic, in which case you cure all of them for one. You can share knowledge, which basically means if you're in the city with another player and you have a city card that matches the city you're in, you can give it to that player. Or if this player has a card that you need and you're in the matching city, you can take it from him, unless you're the researcher. As long as you're in the same city as the researcher can give any one of their cards, even if it's not matching, to another player, or take any card from that player. Once a player has completed 4 actions, they will take the top 2 cards of this deck and add them to their hand, which is how you get more cards in your hand to get a cure. Note that you do have a hand limit of 7. If you draw from the deck and you pull one of these event cards, it gives you basically a free action. As you can read, not an action, and play it at any turn. Simply do what the card says and then just discard it. Hold it, I forgot one more thing, the most important thing. For one action, if you're in a spot with a research station and have 5 cards of the exact same color, unless you're a scientist, in which you only need 4, you can discard these cards and cure that matching disease. Okay, back to this deck. If you draw from this deck and you draw this, an epidemic has come up in a city and is now on the risk of outbreaking. When you pull an epidemic card, there are 3 things you must do. First, you take this infection rate indicator and move it over 1. Then, you do what's called the infect, which is you take the bottom card of the infection deck, flip it over, and you place 3 cards in the said city. Once that is done, you then do a step called intensify, in which you simply take the discard pile, you shuffle it up, and then place that discard pile back on the top of the deck. Regardless of whether you pulled an epidemic or not, after you've drawn your cards, which by the way is determined by what the infection meter is at, you must then infect cities. And what that is you simply take the top card of this infection deck and you place 1 cube in that city. If at any point you have to add a disease cube to a city that already has 3 cubes, the city outbreaks. What that means is you don't place a 4th marker in that city. Instead, you place a marker in every single city that is adjacent to that city. Then you must increase this outbreaks meter by 1 every city that outbreaks. Again, how many cities you infect depends on the meter. Then it's the next player's turn. This will keep going until one of 4 things happen. Either this outbreak meter gets all the way down to the skull and crossbones, then you lose. If you run out of these infection tokens and you have to place one of a color, then you lose. If you have to draw from this deck, but it's empty, then you lose. To win, you have to make sure every single one of these 4 diseases has the cure bottle on top. Essentially, you've cured the diseases. Immediately after the 4th marker has been placed on, players win the game. One extra little thing that'll help you. If you go to take the medic action, or the cure disease action, on a city that has actually been cured, instead of simply taking 1 cube on the city, you take all of them, just like the medic. And that is all you need to know how to play Pandemic. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned how to play. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. I will answer. Thank you all again, as always, so much for watching, and I will see you next time. But until then, later!